The hosts and guests on Everything's Messy podcast are not licensed healthcare professionals. The discussions in our episodes are not personalized medical advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider for medical guidance. Never delay seeking professional medical advice or emergency assistance because of our podcast. We encourage consulting with a healthcare professional before making any significant health changes. By listening to our podcast, you agree to the disclaimer. Thank you for listening to Everything's Messy podcast. Hey, welcome to Everything's Messy podcast, where we celebrate the beautiful but messy life experiences that most, if not all, people go through. Get ready to embark on an exciting journey through the raw and unfiltered stories of everyday people. Here, we dive into messy realities of life, from making messy mistakes to triumphs and everything in between. Are you sensing a theme? That's right, it's messy. But this just isn't about the mess. It's about finding strength and resilience in the midst of it all. We'll explore how health, fitness, and wellness play a crucial role in navigating life's twists and very messy turns. And we'll challenge conventional systems, because sometimes the most unconventional paths lead to the greatest discoveries. Join us as we embrace the messy, beautiful, and endlessly fascinating stories. Each episode is a testament to the power of our messy journeys and the beauty that emerges from the mess. So grab your favorite beverage, coffee, sparkling water, whatever it may be, and prepare to be inspired. Are you ready? Let's get messy. What's happening, my messy warriors? Okay, we are going to do a two-part episode only because there's a lot of information that I want to get out there, and we'll finish up Heart Health Awareness Month strong, and giving you all the information that I feel is very valuable and very useful, especially to women. So we're just going to jump right in and do that. It touches me personally deeply with talking about heart health. But as we go along in this episode, I hope that you see it's not just exceptions of the rule, or you have to really be sick in order to have these cardiac events. I really hope that you'll garner and gain knowledge and education in how this is really affecting women all over. So I really want that to be the takeaway today. And, we talked about HRV last week, and I thought that was some good information. Some people had some takeaways of, if I'm exercising and I'm doing all of this, I should have really good heart rate variability. And yes, that might be true, but sometimes it's not the case, and we'll get into that today. And so today is not soft. It's not cute. But what I'm going to share with you, maybe it'll save your life or somebody else's life, because you'll be knowing what to look for. So, and that's really, really what I'm trying to get here. And I've got a ton of notes and sources and things that I really want there to be a good takeaway today. So one of the things that we talk about here on Everything's Messy, if you've been listening for a while, is, I talk about mom guilt. I talk about, it was very difficult for me to ask for help. And in the beginning, especially when my children were really young, I wore that as a badge of honor. I was so busy. I was so stressed, but look at all the stuff that I'm handling. Look at everything I can do. And I felt it was weak for me to stop and say, hey, I need some help. Or, at the time, not really even knowing how to ask for help or to say no. And I think it's really interesting. Women are sort of just wired to be accommodating, be polite, be kind, and do for others. And while that is all well and good on the surface, and yes, we can, when we can do it, we should. And I completely respect that. But we don't have to punish ourselves or think badly of ourselves or start beating ourselves up because maybe we not only can't do it, maybe we shouldn't do it at that particular moment. And finding those ways to say no and feeling okay about it is really something that, kind of ties into this. So, you can be strong, you can be disciplined, lifting weights, packing lunches, or, running a business, but still be headed toward a cardiac event and you don't have any idea. We're looking at it as anxiety. And I want to stop right here and say so loudly, maybe change I have anxiety to, or I'm even stressed out, to cardiac strain, because that is really the antithesis of what it is, cardiac strain. Okay. And because, as I had mentioned all this month, heart disease is the number one killer for women in the United States, more than any other cancers combined, we really need to take a look at what is connected. And you know me, I feel like it's all connected. And so I really want to get down deep into what exactly is connected and why is the cardiac system so, hanging on to all of this, and what you can do to hopefully improve that. So, again, a lot of people, I get a lot of comments, well, you have type 1 diabetes. That puts you automatically higher in the risk category. That's true. I'm not going to deny that. I've also been very transparent and open about how I was younger and I didn't take blood sugar management very seriously. And so, yes, I had some things early on start to develop that I didn't pay attention to. So, yes, those are all things that are true, but there are other things that are connected. Like I just mentioned, the nervous system and how we are as women, we have the most dysregulated nervous systems out of anybody. Moms, caretakers, business owners. I mean, we have yet to find that strength through this particular mess to make it to where we're not wearing the busy badge as a thing of honor or courage or, look at me, look at all the things that I can do, because it's really, really affecting not only your nervous system, but it's affecting your cardiac system. And we need to really talk about that. So, couple of myths that I want to break through is strong is not necessarily means you're metabolically flexible, right? You can be doing all of the stuff that's strong and, especially if you're doing a lot of cardiac or cardio exercises and things like that. But it doesn't mean that you still don't have strain on your heart. Sorry, I guess I'm having a hard time speaking today. Words. One of the things that I think we typically feel like is if we think we work out, we think we're strong, if we think we're doing all of these things right, people that are very lean doesn't necessarily equal low inflammation, right? And we've talked about inflammation. People who are fit, though they don't necessarily mean that they're hormonally balanced. So these are all things that are contributing, all things that are tied together. And, the heart risk factor for women is hard to ignore. We have to be looking at this, and especially why healthy, strong women can still have heart attacks. And so that's something, if you don't think this can happen to you, you're the person that I'm talking to the most. None of us think it's going to happen to us. All of us can. I have and I love them to death, but I have two friends, one of them my very best friend, and they are very, very busy. They always have something going on. And I always try to tell them, stop, take a moment, just rest for a little bit. And it's very difficult for them because they put their nervous system into this overdrive and they, run. And it is hard for them to then stop and take a beat. It really is. And so I'm speaking to them as much as I'm speaking to everyone else. And it's, they don't like to necessarily acknowledge that that's what I'm trying to help them with, because and here's the thing, they are handling it all. They are doing it all. Doesn't necessarily mean that they should be, and or, backing off doesn't make them less than. That's really the message I want to get across, right? And especially, you can't out hustle inflammation, right? You can't out hustle it. You just can't. And when we're talking with cortisol levels, cardio is not going to fix your cortisol levels. In fact, sometimes a very hard HIIT workout or cardio workout sometimes spikes your cortisol, and it's very hard to bring it back down. So while you might be exercising your heart, your cortisol levels are freaking out, and it's kind of like they're fighting against each other, right? So it just want to make sure that even if you wear that badge and believe, and again, you're doing it. You can do it all. Doesn't mean we should or that we have to, right? Doesn't mean we're not strong. Doesn't mean that we're not, we glorify it. We have changed the name to being stressed out to productivity. Now, that's great that we're productive and we're not sloths sitting on the couch, but at what point do we step back and go, the balance of productivity or the balance of ourselves, or making sure that we, are really in a position to do the things we're saying yes to? It shouldn't be a badge of honor. It should be a warning sign, to be honest. It should be a warning sign. And I've said this the whole time I've been on the podcast. Your body whispers before it screams. And when it's screaming, by then it's probably too late. Okay? It is whispering to you. It is talking to you. So as we go down this everything's connected, I really want that understanding there. So for me, having the heart attack, I've talked about the symptoms I didn't have. I talked about sort of what led up to it. And I think high performance women are often the last to notice their own decline, right? High performance women are very often the last to notice their own decline, because we are so involved with everyone else, what everyone else needs, what everyone else, we are focused so much. We're not paying attention to our body whispering, and we really need to. We need to get rid of the, I can handle it mindset. Yeah, of course you can handle it. We can handle most things. Doesn't mean that we should. I've talked about getting rid of the mom guilt, and even having that productivity addiction. The more I do, the more I do, the more I can say I do, the more I can say I do. And, yes, there are some times where we need to get focused, get down in the trenches, hammer down, and do the things that we're supposed to do. But that should not be 24/7 for an extended period of time. It really shouldn't. So, HRV, cardiac events, all of that, they don't care about your job title. They really don't. They want you to be listening to what your body's trying to tell you. They're trying to give you warning signs. And so let's get into a little bit. We've talked about, inflammation before, and I call it the silent inflammation layer, if you will. That's when you do have chronically high cortisol. That's when you do have your blood sugar spikes that are out of control. Your sleep debt. We know how much I go in to talk about sleep. Overtraining. Again, I spoke about a very hard hit workout, and you might feel pumped, and this is great, but your cortisol, your heart may not be saying, they might be saying, time out, this was too much. You might be better use of what you're doing. You might be better off lifting heavy, taking it slower. You're still going to get your heart rate up. You're still moving your muscles. No, it's not a heart rate incline like it would be for cardio, but maybe we don't need that right now. Maybe we need walking and we need the heavy lifting. That really, I think, is going to take you maybe farther. Maybe we don't need to be under eating protein and over dieting, right? Again, small bouts. If you believe in fasting, if you believe in, going, what is it? The water fast, things like that. If those are your beliefs, if that has worked for you, great. But chronically long-term under eating protein and over dieting is going to wreak havoc hormonally, cardiovascularly. All of these other symptoms are going to be affected, because what does our body need? It needs nutrients, which is protein and other macros as well. But it's really getting enough protein, right? And then you have the autoimmune layers that we've talked about on this show. You've got, chronic conditions, Hashimoto's, thyroid, diabetes, type 1, type 2, gestational. Any of those is going to wreak havoc on your system. So when we get into when we're talking about the autoimmune and chronic conditions, I have to bring up the insulin resistance, right? And I think I mentioned this on the podcast last week, but insulin resistance can exist in lean women. It truly can. And so you might be thinking, well, I'm doing all the right things and I'm working out and I'm eating right, but you could still be insulin resistant. And that is going to put stress on your body. It's going to put stress on your heart. And for someone who is a type 1 diabetic, and I constantly have to monitor my blood sugar, that in and of itself is an added frustration that also puts my body out of whack, because then along comes that with the guilt of what I ate. I didn't take enough insulin. How come I can't figure out how much insulin I need? It's because it's different every day. And I've said this before. I have literally come to the best way that works for me is if I eat pretty much the same things every day. However, that doesn't mean I get the same results with my blood sugar every day. And it drives me crazy. Drives me crazy. So that's a really, you know, that's a really sore subject with me. But for those who are not diabetic, you also still could be experiencing insulin resistance. Even if you're doing all the right things, you want to make sure you're getting your fasting glucose checked. Your fasting glucose, not just your blood sugar, on a random doctor visit, a fasting glucose. That's important. So we need to really talk about if you're not having recovery days, the I'll sleep when I'm dead culture. I used to be that so much. I worked midnights for years. There's so many people out there on shift work, and God bless them for what they do, because it really screws up your nervous system, your circadian rhythm. I mean, everything. It just wreaks havoc. But then we get into this mindset where, for the longest time, I was like, I like midnights better. I like what's happening at night. I can sleep during the day. Yeah, I go to sleep, but it was not the right kind of sleep. It was survival sleep, and that was going against of what our body needs. Now, those of you that are doing it, my husband does it. I get that it needs to be done, and we are so thankful you're out there doing those night shifts, midnights, 24 hours, whatever your shift is. But we also need to be able to build in rest days and make sure we are getting enough sleep, because that is really, really serious. And then we go to the overfueling, under exercising, which I talked about, and low HRV, which we talked about last week, which is going to equal poor recovery, right? If your HRV is tanked, your nervous system is screaming 100%. And again, rest days, recovery days, getting extra sleep, that's not weakness. That's not, thinking, oh, I'm lazy, or even saying those words out loud. Oh, I'm just going to be lazy today. No, that's your recovery day. That's your rest day. And it is a cardiovascular strategy to make sure that you are resting. So recovery, resting, it's not weakness, it's a cardiovascular strategy. And it shouldn't be to the point where you've gone hard for a month and then you give yourself a day off. It should be consistent, that you have recovery days built in every week. How many you need or how long you need, that's personal and up to you, but you definitely need to be building these in. So we talk about, we need to lift hard. I've, been weightlifting now for almost 4 years. It is essential to the way that I'm living, the way that I'm trying to build back my heart strength, bone strength, all of the, hormonally balanced. Those things are so important to me. But, and I'm not trying to scare you. I'm here to help you. I'm hoping that one person goes, I got to take this more seriously. So you start listening to those whispers and not have them screaming like I had to eventually pay attention to the screaming. Okay. So lift, definitely. Recover harder. That's what I'm trying to impress upon you. 3 to 4 strength sessions a week is the perfect amount. And 1 to 2, and I would go on the heavier side of 2 rest days a week. I'm sorry, 3 to 4 strength sessions a week. Sorry if I said month. And then 1 to 2 rest days, and then walking is better. And I will say this all the time. walking is going to be so much better than a HIIT exercise. And then it comes into the speed that you're walking and the miles that you're putting on, but walking every day, softly, fast, gently, whatever that looks like. Running, I get there's a lot of runners out there. My dad is a big runner. I, give kudos to him. Running is really hard on the body. If you're doing it, great. But walking is just as much as a good result. It is easier on your joints, your bones, your body. And if you're doing it for a long duration and, you're outside, or even if you're doing it on a treadmill, it's going to keep you a little bit on a calmer level, not dysregulate your nervous system so much, and not spike your cortisol so much. So again, stabilizing blood sugar, protein first. Protein, 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 protein. Now, we've discussed in podcasts before that a lot of people have a problem digesting a lot of protein at one time. I know a recommended amount is about 30 grams with every meal that you're eating. And even that sometimes can be too much if you need to back down to 25 grams, but protein should be first. Nothing should be going into your mouth that is food related, that is not, electrolytes, lemon water, tea, those kinds of things. The first thing should be protein, whatever kind that works for you. I am, always trying to tell you what I'm doing, and that is red meat, grass-fed, grass-finished. There's a lot of people that maybe are sensitive to red meat. There is enzymes out there that you can take before you eat that, so your body has a better chance of breaking it down and holding on to those nutrients and absorbing that protein. But whatever works for you, whatever protein you're getting, it should be first. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So what I've talked about last week when we were talking about HRV, you want to wake up and get that sunlight, that morning sun, into your eyes as quick as you can, along with water with some lemon or electrolytes. And then if you can eat within an hour of waking, that is going to stabilize the day for blood sugar spikes, and it's going to help you stay on track. And I can attest to this. If you wake up and you are scrambling to get out of the house and you're hungry and you end up, grabbing a, cereal bar or a donut or something that's just not going to set the day for you, you can literally track back and tell why the day before was better than that day because of what you started with in the morning. So, and we need to get away from our body it's very much ritual. It's very much clockwork. Our body starts to learn, if you feed me every day at this time, then it knows how much to release, especially if you're not diabetic. It knows how much insulin to release. It knows how much of the cortisol it's going to release. And so if you start training your body, and we need to be training our body as much as we're training our physical strength, internally we need to be training it to prepare and to get it used to, okay, we know that we're waking up pretty much the same time every morning, and we should be going to sleep pretty much the same time every night. So our body starts to adapt to that. And then with the food that we're eating, if we start eating regularly at the same time, good protein, good macros, then our body starts to expect it. And those of us that are looking for better blood sugar control, that's a really good way to track it. Again, depending on stress and depending on what's going on, my blood sugars are not exactly the same every day, but at least my body knows and prepares, okay, I know at 1:30 I'm going to have my, venison with my orange, with some yogurt maybe. Like, it knows it's going to get that stuff at that time. And it starts to release what it needs and hang on to what it needs. And that's good training for our body. So let's get into a little bit of the emotional pivot, as I like to say, the shift from hustle to healing, because we really need to not only be healing what's already going on in our body, but prepare and make sure these big canon health events are not going to happen to us. right? And so think about, we talked about HRV last time. We need to start building what's called our vagal tone daily. This goes to everything else I always talk about. And I always smile at that because some people are like, okay, you sound like a broken record. Yeah, maybe I do. But when you realize it's all connected and all of these little tiny steps that I'm giving you to become consistent, not perfect, not perfection, but consistent, you start to see how it's all related. So the sunlight, nasal breathing. I had a gentleman on the show last year. I can drop the episode in the show notes, but he was the one who showed us put one finger over your nose, breathe in one side, then do it to the other. And that's nasal breathing. And that's resetting all of that lung capacity, your heart, calming your system, all of those things. So I will drop that in the show notes for sure. Cold exposure. Now we've talked about this, and I have changed my little bit of the way that I go about cold exposure. And this is to say, if you are dealing with cortisol issues to begin with, if you are dealing with cardiac issues to begin with, if you are dealing with dysregulated nervous systems to begin with, you want to be careful with that cold exposure. We want to be careful how much we're shocking the body, because while we're doing that, and while we think we're recovering and our muscles are, responding to that, we have to understand that with cold exposure, there is a constriction that happens. And when all of the vessels are constricting, that's actually going to impede the blood flow from going in where it needs. And we want to make sure that we're doing that in a safe, productive way. So be paying attention to how you're doing it, when you're doing it. Make sure if you're doing it, especially when it comes to exercise, you're doing the cold exposure before you're starting your exercise. That's really super important. So again, I encourage you guys to look further into that and really decide if that's good for you. So vagal tone can also be affected by laughter. How many times does it put us in such a good mood when we're around friends or even our kids, family, and something is said and it's hysterical, and all of you just go into this really deep belly laugh, and it just is so releasing, and you actually sort of feel good afterwards, after that laugh, and you want to sort of stay on that level. That's your body responding to that joy, that happiness, not only on a mental level, but on a physiological level, which is what we want it to happen, right? And then, of course, if you're praying or meditating, sitting quietly, reflecting, those are things that are also going to help you with your vagal tone. And then it's really hard, I know, as a mom, as a woman, as a human. The moment that you realize you're not invincible, that there is an end date, which, yes, can be very sad, but what we need to be focusing on is what we can do while we're here and living our best moment, living out loud, living with joy. Those days are what we make of them, right? So we want to make sure we have that moment, that time, the laughter, even a moment of reflection. We're giving that to ourselves because that's all connected. Remember, mind, body, spirit, everything connected. So that's really what I want to do on this episode. On the part 2 of this episode, we're going to get into the CBP and kind of the science behind it, what that means, why it's important that you do get your cholesterol, even though I do think the parameters of the cholesterol test has changed. I'm going to give you the breakdown on the next episode of more of what it's actually searching for and what we can do to make those numbers better. Obviously, a better diet, but there's some other things too. So I hope that at least in this first part, we're looking at healing over hustling. You're going to give yourself some grace, a pat on the back, and stop striving to wear that badge of honor of being the busiest that you can possibly be, the most productive that you can possibly be. Let's slow down a little and look just to be resting our body with ease, not with guilt, with grace, not with pressure. So that is this first half. And come back next week. Again, I'll go into the more scientific stuff. Please share this with a woman that you think needs to hear this, or anybody you think needs to hear this. We need to all be trying to uplift each other and get smarter about this heart health, as I'm trying to do here in this health month or heart month awareness. So thank you, and we'll see you later. Thanks for listening to Everything's Messy podcast. Whew, if you made it this far, give yourself a gold star or at least a nap. Honestly, if you showed up today and you were listening, you've already crushed it. I'm so grateful for you listening. If anything hit home, share it, tag me, write it on a sticky note. I don't care. Just don't keep all of this messy goodness to yourself. You can find me on Instagram at Everything's Messy Wellness, or over at my website, everythingsmessywellness.com, where I've got resources, coaching, and probably a new rant about blood sugar or something that's just nonsense. It's all waiting for you. Check out my YouTube channel. I've got all of my podcast episodes up there. And I'm on X at Everything's Mess. Or if you just want to send me an email, Sarah at everythingsmessywellness.com. Look, until next time, hydrate, take no crap, and as always, keep it messy.